Hi, this is Ed, and this is San Diego. This is my hometown, 92101. This is the view of the downtown, of course, the Embarcadero. And most of those buildings behind me are uh, residences, condos, and some apartments, and some office buildings. And to my right, uh, oh, over there, no, over there, uh, is Seaport Village and the tourist area, which many people know because of the convention center and the major hotel properties lining the bay, the San Diego Bay. And then that, of course, leads out to the Pacific Ocean. So we're about 150 miles south of downtown LA and about 600 miles south of downtown San Francisco. Um, just to give you an idea. So today launches uh, a series. It's going to be a weekly series, a TV show, which I will produce and basically finance and get it going. We're going to build an audience with free registration. We want to invite business-oriented people and authors and medical scientists, teachers, and business people, and those who like business people to come and join us. Our focus is going to be UK, US. What's the take? Focusing in on people from London, from New York, from California, from Washington, and other places, of course. A weekly TV show, free admission. Certainly, we always want co-sponsors. It would be a great way to display your brand and just not your business card brand, the professional brand, but you. Your personal brand is the driver of your professional brand. So my job is to come open-minded, welcome others to join the conversation, oftentimes not scripted, certainly organized around a theme or two, but we want people to voice opinion and talk about what went on in their workday or what they plan to do the rest of the week. We want people to feel comfortable using the camera as a friend, not as an enemy. My business for a very long time is public relations, and I have years of experience in front of the camera. And you could probably tell that I'm looking comfortable. I am comfortable. This is my friend. The key is prep. Anyone can do this kind of thing, but to perfect it and smooth out rough edges, you have to practice a lot. So I started being a TV talk show host using my Zoom as a broadcast studio, a recording session studio, where we have a variety of broadcasts, books and authors, health and well-being, medical research, business leadership, thought leadership, travel, all kinds of things. Our key is all about talent. The key, the core of our business is talent development, talent attraction, talent development, learning and development, project-based learning. In other words, going on an assignment could be cross borders, or it could be, well, let's just say within the US, it could be from Southern California to Northern California, or it could be into New York or Miami or Mexico or wherever. How are the assignees managed? How are they coached? Is it a psychologically safe environment for assignees to go out on a project, work in a foreign country? We're talking about in person, not just remote. It's difficult. A lot of them don't work. Why don't they work? Lack of prep, lack of coaching, lack of mentoring, personal stress, not being mentally adept or ready to deal with being a stranger. You're the outsider, oftentimes not welcomed other than cursory nicety. It's difficult. So companies have a responsibility to train their people, or else they're wasting a whole lot of money and reputation to their brand, never mind to talent development. So this kind of a broadcast, this kind of a conversation will break some ice, open minds, generate not controversy, but solutions. So we're going to begin in just a few minutes. Don't go away. I'll be right back with our guests. Thank you. This is Ed, and welcome back to Global TV Talk Show, a unit of globalbusinessnews.net. This is about the next chapter in developing international business relationships. Welcome. With us is David Edick. He has many, many years, more than me, involved with international business, and he's going to talk about that much better than I can. Currently, he's the leader in San Diego. He's the president and of the San Diego World Affairs Council, and has meetings with very high-powered people. I happen to register to attend virtually. And David has been on our show here the past couple of years, always the smartest guy in the room most of the time on international affairs and international business. Okay, with us from New York, by way of London, is James Moss. As you can see, the company is Curzon Central, and that's curzoncentral.com. And you'll learn all about his super techie approach to helping people and companies relocate, bopping between Dubai and London and New York, occasionally in West LA, on the move. Thank you for your time today, James.
Great to be with
And
you.
meet David, and also Annalisa, who's coming to us from north of London in the UK. On the, are you situated on the North Sea? Is that where you are? Oh, you are on mute. I can't
Sorry,
believe.
yes, I am.
Okay,
Yes, I can believe it.
yeah.
Yes, the North Sea. That is correct, Ed. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, welcome. Okay, we are recording. This show is about, as I mentioned previously, developing international business relationships. We are basically unscripted, but very well organized. And we provide a feeling of psychological safety. And the idea is to make this little green light there that we're looking at a friend, not the enemy. Not the enemy. So the thing is don't scratch your nose. Be careful. We are being recorded, and you never know who's going to watch this recording a month from now. So Annalisa, welcome. It's been so long, and I'm really happy to see your smile.
Thank you, Ed. Yes. When people talk about branding, I think the smile is part of mine. So I like to think so anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I see your logo, a logo in the background. If you can move to the left or right, the people can see that it
Oh,
says Maxwell Leadership Certification, Certified Team. So what does that mean in 30 seconds or less?
okay. So 30 seconds. Yes. So I went on a journey and I decided that I wanted to come out of marketing and work on developing people instead. The journey that I was on brought me to what was then the John Maxwell team, and has recently rebranded Maxwell Leadership. So that is using John Maxwell, who is a leadership authority, has written many, many books on the subject of leadership and personal development. I'm licensed to deliver his core teachings in leadership and personal development. I've been trained as a coach and a speaker as well with Maxwell Leadership. So it kind of brings all these disciplines together: coaching, teaching, speaking, and team engagement as well. And all trained by an excellent faculty that continue to deliver to alumni 24/7. So it's a very good training, shall we say.
So let me ask you to go a little deeper for just a minute here. You deal with anybody, or do you focus only on business people?
Up until now, I've worked mostly in the corporate space as an executive coach, but my passion going forwards really is to help people who want to transition in their lives to move forward. People who are stuck, who are wanting to do something a little bit different, or they might have a big vision. They might have something that they want to achieve, a mission in life, but they feel a little bit daunted by it and they don't really know how to take that next step. So to have somebody come alongside them and help them to break it down into chunks that they can manage. Or it might be people who just want to develop as more heart-centered leaders and to understand what that looks like in practice, and to lead with a sense of purpose in the world. So that they are the three kind of markets, if you like, for what I'm going to be doing in the future.
Let me ask you about this thing called the imposter syndrome. In other words, we think that, oh, maybe I'm not the right person to do that kind of thing. And I want to tell the audience that I happen to know something about you, and that is you have a keen and wonderful theatrical background. And so you apply that scope, that learning that you have uh, experienced and apply to your own life, and you teach others to do what I'm doing, look into the camera and be comfortable.
Yeah. I don't think I teach in the same way as you do, Ed, in terms of being comfortable in front of a camera. I think acting skills do come into what I teach, but maybe in a subtle way. So last year, as you know, I was kind of veering towards, at the beginning of the year, focusing on voice in the corporate space. And whereas there's such an emphasis at the moment on storytelling and telling the story of your business and that side of speaking, there wasn't a great deal of emphasis on the technical side of speaking and learning how to project your voice and also project it safely. So that's what I was thinking of doing last year. But then Kate, as you know, the year before, I was doing quite a lot with you and I was doing quite a lot of podcasts and shows like this. And I stepped back last year because I wanted to really align authentically with my passion and my own values. And I wanted to make sure that when I was coming into these talk shows with you, that I was coming on as my most authentic self. And I had to ask myself, why am I kind of going into something else when actually values and helping businesses to align with their values in branding, and and helping people to align with their values and using those as their North Star is really what I'm most passionate about. So I stepped away to do some work on myself and to realign. And what came out in the 9 months that followed was the Growth Garden, as you know, which is usually have that background on, as you know now, but I'm just doing a bit of tweaking on it at the moment. So yeah, that's what I'm going to be bringing everything that I do under from now on is the Growth Garden, my coaching and challenges and workbooks and journals, all aspects of personal and professional development will kind of hang under there. So
I'm looking forward to diving into that, with you in coming weeks. James Moss and I have known each other more than 20 years, socially as well as in business. But James, you just got back recently from you were in Dubai and London and now and then you were in LA for a bit right after the fires and uh, and now you're back in Manhattan. And you were telling me that, well, spring has sprung and it's the home buying season and the cross-border real estate interest is good.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a busy start to the year. Let me just say very quickly how good it is to be on with David and Annalisa, who I haven't actually seen for a while, and who I am a huge fan of. And she's a wonderful communicator. And anyway, I can say
oh,
lots of other lovely things, but it's not enough time.
thank you, James. That's very kind of you. Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here with you again.
Yeah, no problem. So we will catch up offline, so to speak, properly.
Definitely.
So yeah, so I've been hopping around a little bit. I was out seeing some clients in the Middle East. Obviously back in London doing stuff there with my team and various clients and properties there. Things physically warming up in New York. I'm glad to say it's been absolutely freezing here. And the markets, theoretically, are about to get going again, but we're seeing a little bit of disruption taking place in the world at the moment.
That's for sure.
And maybe we'll come on to that again later. I've got a few slides there just to mention if you want to do a quick sort of 2-minute spin through of what it looks like, because it's quite fascinating actually.
Okay, we're going to get back to you in
But,
just a minute. I want to ask Dave Edick to give us a quick update about San Diego World Affairs Council. You have some interesting shows coming.
Well, it's good to be here, Ed, and on with you both, with all three of you. So the World Affairs Council, we educate and engage San Diegans in international relations, global issues, and cultural understanding. We're part of a 90-chapter network around the United States that originally got started with community debates about whether the United States should sign the Treaty of Versailles or not. And wow, here we are. What I'm doing.
So the Treaty of Versailles, that was World War I?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And we were trying to find our way. The US was trying to find its way forward in a complicated world, and we're in that space again. So my position actually is a volunteer position here in San Diego. Many of our big chapters around the country are they have paid core staff, and my interest is my goal is to scale up the council and have it be sustainable over time. So we have the focus is international relations, global issues. Yeah, there's a lot going on. It's this. I grew up during the Cold War, and the formative period for my career was the end of the Cold War. That ended up taking me to Russia for food trade, investment banking, and all. And it was an extraordinary time where it seemed that anything was possible. And then things settled down and became really boring. Stayed but we've now entered a period where it's a massive transitional period. And a lot of what was is going to go out the door. And I think it presents huge challenges for companies, especially larger ones, that navigate like tankers. You know, it takes time to turn the ship. And this is really dangerous time for them. On the other hand, for young people and entrepreneurs, this is an extraordinary time of opportunity. You may get killed along the way, if figuratively, but it's an extraordinary time we're moving into.
Yeah. Okay. So extraordinary because it's breaking the mold and trying new things in order to have an outcome that will be different than what was.
Yeah, we'll definitely have a different outcome than what was. So the end of the Cold War, the big change was driven by change, an ideological breakdown in the East, first and foremost, and then that resulted ultimately in a geopolitical breakdown and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. This time it's the United States that's leading the breakdown or transformation of the global system. And I don't think there's as was the case with the breakup, the dissolution of the Soviet Union, there was no plan. And I don't think there is a plan now. There's some vague narratives out in play. And well, I'm interested in, in hearing James talk here, but I'm also interested in Annalisa, in the UK, caught kind of between, Brexit, post-Brexit UK, and the idea that maybe that there could be, some sort of trade deal or a continued relationship with the United States.
It's definitely an interesting. Oh, my.
No, go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. For some reason, it said I was muted. I don't know why. It confused me completely. But thanks, David. Just what you were saying there. It is a really interesting time, particularly with us also having had a recent change in government, from Conservative to Labour, and people being surprised at how Labour are dealing and handling. The Labour government is dealing and handling the transition also of the American government and Donald Trump coming back into power, because they're very much, their ideologies are so different. They're like chalk and cheese. And yet our Prime Minister kind of rose in stature and popularity after meeting Donald Trump at the White House and gained a lot of credibility over here, whereas in actual fact, his popularity had been falling since the election. The way that he handled those negotiations at the White House really helped his popularity soar, and he won a lot of fans that he didn't have before that. But I think
so he is an accomplished attorney, right? A lawyer.
he is,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, he's been around a long
yeah.
time, but in the background.
Absolutely, yeah. But he held a very high, high ranking position. Obviously, as a chief prosecutor. So, yeah. I mean, he knows his stuff. He's a serious politician who is getting the job done, and I think he's brought credibility back into British politics that we really had lost with personality politics and people like Boris Johnson. Yeah.
Right.
And that's been a good thing, because we needed to kind of get the grown-ups back in the room.
So talking about grown-ups, if I can jump in here, but just for a second, the breaking news out of Canada is, in their collective wisdom, which is wonderful in my view, to find this guy, the banker, Carney, I think that's his name, he was head of Bank of Canada and then Bank of England, and has gone home, and now he stepped up in this crisis time to replace Trudeau and be a sense of strength, mental strength, financial strength, strong, smart. James, what do you think of that?
I think he has an immense amount of credibility. I think Mark Carney was an outstanding governor of the Bank of England. He was outstanding running the Canadian Central Bank. He's a man of enormous integrity, experience, knowledge, intelligence. Apparently, he was a really mean ice hockey player and really loved taking people out. I think he's the right man at the right time for Canada. I think he's going to be really tough on Trump. I don't think he's going to let Trump bully him. I don't see any way that Canada's going to become the 51st state of the United States, this side of hell freezing over. Going back to the UK, I think Starmer has real statesmanship qualities, which has been lacking for a long time. In local politics, Starmer's issue isn't his easy fit into the statesmanship role. His issue is really the rest of the Labour Party that he's sort of got to manage. The UK desperately needs a trade deal with Europe and with the United States. And I think Starmer is probably the guy who will or may well be able to achieve that. I don't think it'll necessarily be through the front door. Certainly with the EU, I think there's a lot of very positive engagement going on behind the scenes, particularly with Germany, although Germany's just had a changed government. And I think Starmer and Trump hit it off, which is pretty amazing because they're totally different animals. But Starmer, you know, he's a man who's good at building connections and he communicates very well. He has gravitas, as Annalisa was saying. He was director of the Public Prosecution Services, for which he was knighted. He's very successful. So I
And
think,
in my
yeah,
in my view, he showed that he's a showman right out of London's West End theatrical district by whipping out the envelope, which contained an engraved invitation from the king to Donald Trump right in the press room there. And man, that was the way to capture Mr. Trump's attention.
you know, I think Annalisa's probably got more say on that. It was a very uncharacteristic and very effective gesture, but I think from a pure drama point of view.
And just
Annalisa,
to get back to Dave here, with the president of Mexico, brilliant. And I saw the news clip last night about like 1 million people in the square celebrating La Presidenta yesterday or the day before. David?
Well, I missed out on that one. For sure, it's President Sheinbaum is first female president for Mexico. It's going to be really interesting to see how she and Mexico manage this relationship or deal with this relationship with Trump, with Washington. This is very much a personalistic regime in DC. It is Trump 2.0, and pretty much everybody else that's on the entourage takes their cue from Trump. There's not a lot of power in these various cabinet positions unless they are authorized to speak for Donald Trump. I have real questions about how things move forward with Canada. Canada's going to have a national election coming up in September. I believe it's September. And Carney has come on to replace Trudeau as the leader of the Liberal Party, and it's kind of a temporary bridge. This is going to be a real experience for Carney. We'll see what his mettle is like. I think the Premier of Ontario, the province of Ontario, Ford is an interesting approach to dealing with Trump. I think Starmer was exceptionally well coached. He has high emotional intelligence and is sensitive to personalities. And the, kind of the you contrast that with the extraordinary scene that we saw with Zelensky, which separate from the politics of things, getting back to personality and and dealing with the moment. And for Zelensky, it was an in-your-face moment of headwind. He didn't handle it very well. Maybe he was tired. I mean, if you're being ambushed, it's a tough scene anyways. But he didn't handle it very well, and he made some big mistakes. Starmer, on the other hand, was flawless in that moment. Where the hard stuff gets is on the practical side of things. What does it mean for companies? And governments are going kind of the intermediary between DC and what's going on the ground. And I still think Starmer has his hands full. So much of UK economic world is still tied to Europe, Brexit or not. And if hitting the EU with tariffs, and there's going to be a lot of tariffs, make no mistake. The feedback effect of tariffs on Europe will appear in the UK. And I'm still looking for UK to have a direction in terms of competitiveness. And that's going to be determined by people that live in the UK, that are committed to the UK. And the Canadians will have their own set of choices. I'm interested in James. There were some interesting looks that came across your face as you talked about New York. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you feeling?
Well, New York is an animal of its own making, and its own drivers. But what am I seeing in New York? A lot of concern. There are big anti-Trump people here. The New York Times hates Trump with a vengeance, and everything is fully sort of justified in that. I'm not going to get political myself. I tend not to do that. But I have some interesting data, Ed, which it might be worth just putting up for like a minute or two to skim through it. So I think
Okay, go ahead and yeah, take the stage now, because I know you have a time constraint,
I have
and
a
then
time to
yeah, and
but
then we want to circle back and get
but
Annalisa involved to talk about making your mark.
yeah, okay. Well, look, give me just a minute just to show you, because it's data that ties into everything we've been saying, and I'm literally just going to fly through it. So let me know.
Yeah, okay, it's open now.
Uh,
You can try to upload that now.
yeah, can you see? Can you see that?
Not
Not
yet.
yet.
You can't. Okay. Let's see.
Okay, here they come.
Can you see that?
It's right now black.
There you
Okay.
go.
All right, U.S. tariffs. That's a good one. I like that.
Okay, well, all right. I'm just going to show you just a couple of things, and we sort of know this, but it is changing pretty quickly. So Trump was talking about slapping. This was on March the 4th, by the way, so it's quite out of date. Incredible to believe, but it is. So 25% on Canada, which he then raised to 50% on aluminium and metal, and now it's back down that 25% Mexico and the 20% China, which took place, I think, at 4 o'clock this morning. So it's heavy stuff that's going on here. Okay, just trying to switch to the next slide, which should be happening. There we go. So what's been hit? And I think this is quite a interesting slide. So you see you've got Mexico, China, and Canada there. And then you can see the,
So Mexico is purple.
yeah, so Mexico, so 78% of delivery trucks, which are made in Mexico, huge supply to the United States, going to hit the States really, really hard. They're going to have tariffs slapped on. 15% in Canada. Again, insulated wire is big in Mexico. Computers are big in Mexico. China, really technology. But Canada, look at the whole oil, crude petroleum situation. The other thing, there are other things that aren't on here, like Canada is one of the largest lumber manufacturers and exporters to the United States. So house building costs in the United States are going to rocket. So again, this is just a quick snapshot. If we're looking at the EU and doesn't include the UK, strangely enough, although it's out there, but if you look at the exports and imports between the US and Europe, again, the numbers are very, very substantial. These are just looking at the top services. The most recent data is 2012, so it's a bit out of date. But the scale of it is probably fairly relevant still. And you look at things like transportation. The big one actually is financial services as well, and other services. There's a lot goes on in financial, particularly like insurance markets out of London and stuff like that. And they're sort of, how are they going to be affected by tariffs? I mean, I honestly don't know the answer to that. But it's, the numbers and the whole impact of this tariff situation with the EU is again very, very substantial. And you can think of sort of specific examples. I mean, it sort of seems a bit crazy, but things like Italian and German and French cheeses, wine. If you're talking UK, you're talking whiskey. If you're talking from the United States, there's a lot of things like transportation and financial services, and a whole range of other things. So these are really game-changing situations. And the last slide here is just to show you what's happening on the stock markets in the States, which is sort of pretty interesting and very salient. This is today's data, by the way. This is out of the Wall Street Journal. And you can see that when Trump got elected, a lot of euphoria on the markets, the Trump bump. Everyone thought this is going to be just fantastic, and a quick bit of profit taking. Then the tariffs came, and you can see the market is absolutely crashing. There's a huge amount of uncertainty. Tariffs are going to rock costs, and consumer spending will fall, and things become a lot more expensive, and inflation's going to rise. Interest rates are not going to fall. Certainly, they could even potentially rise. Trump is now talking over the weekend. He said, I don't mind if we have to go into recession for a while. These are all messages that the stock market and the world at large and the American consumer does not want to hear. So I just wanted to put that up and share that.
So Dave, do you think that's bait and switch?
I'm sorry, say again.
Do I think it's bait and switch?
Right, that Trump knew what he was doing all along, but didn't tell the public.
Well, he's doing in a lot of ways what he said he would do. Trump is a drama queen, and he's a media. He is a media. He's very savvy. His record in real estate development, that's his roots in New York, and he made a lot of enemies there outside
Terrible.
the ideological and media world. But he's gifted in terms of making media pay for him. In terms of policy making, that's something totally different. I get the idea of essentially rebalancing the world and the America First vision, which in a lot of ways is going to be, disconnecting, decoupling, it's been going on with China for a while and presents the same challenges to the idea of co-manufacturing and everything. What James is getting into, though, the markets are responding to this turbulence. Tariffs one day, tariffs are off the next day. Oh, we'll put it off for a month. You can't do this. I mean, you can do it, but there's a huge cost to pay from the investment perspective. I mean, it's exciting for traders, but it's a lousy environment to invest in, that turbulence. So, I think that the business people and the political public can accept, oh, well, there's going to be a recession because we're going to have to change directions and adjust, or it's going to take time for these policies to work through. That's a sense of certainty that does not exist right now. I mean, it's very much chaotic.
Yeah,
So,
I
yeah,
completely agree with that. Absolutely. There's no policy, there's no direction. Everything's been done on a whim. The economic situation is dire. The geopolitical mess, sort of the rough handing of the Ukrainian war. We're all looking forward to the new developments on the Gaza Riviera with the displacement of, 2.5 million Palestinians. Yeah, I mean, everywhere this guy seems to be turning his attention, it seems to end in turbulence and confusion
chaos.
and total uncertainty.
Yeah. So what I'm seeing without all the education connected, like you guys have, but I'm just seeing from out here in the far southwest corner on the Baja Mexico border, just a few miles from where I'm sitting, is I think I'm going to get on a plane and go further west to Hawaii. Yeah. But maybe not. San Diego's okay. So nobody wanted chaos. And uh, I applaud some of President Trump's military thinking about reinvesting into the armaments and particularly the Navy. San Diego is Pacific Fleet headquarters, and it's huge, billions each year spent right here by the Navy, and there's going to be a lot more rebuilding ships and tech and training expansion. It is going to be boom times here in San Diego because of that, being the economic base. And of course, here in San Diego is huge medical science research. UC San Diego, University of California, San Diego is right here, a couple of miles up the road from me. Huge impact and dominance in medical research and technology. And right next door is Qualcomm and what's called Sorrento Valley Tech area, bioscience as well as electronics. it is an amazing concentration right here, smaller than Silicon Valley, which is an hour and 10-minute flight, but it's right here. It's causing real estate prices in San Diego to rapidly increase. To get a small house for $1 million is just ridiculous. And you'd think that's going to be a market crasher, but it's not happening because there's still a demand. Dave, what do you think of that?
Well, the turbulence has arrived here. So UC San Diego, latest ratings is one of the top 10 universities in the world. You know, there are lies, damn lies, and statistics. It's a big university. San Diego does have a big biomedical research and development and practice. But the hit on NIH and the grant flows through
That's right.
science, UC San Diego is in crisis mode right now in terms of figuring out how they're going to deal with the upwards of hundreds of millions of dollars that they thought they had last week that they aren't going to have next week.
Yeah.
The Navy build out, there's a lot of talk about that. But we'll see what that really means in a practical sense. And if they actually want the ships, they may have to build them in Korea and Japan. We'll see how that all works out. But
Yeah.
there are headwinds here, you know. Ed, you pointed out the housing prices. It's a really tough place. If you don't have the income, it's hard to hang in there. And that's one of the challenges that companies here have is, to bring people to San Diego. How are they going to manage? That's New York is a similar thing. New York is a pretty expensive place, but
Yeah, it's interesting because interest rates are not going to be coming down. I mean, Powell was quite good last week and saying, basically everything's fine fundamentally, which I don't think it is. But anyway, that was putting out a message calm. And with interest rates holding and potentially going up, I mean, if America goes into recession or really if inflation goes up, then interest rates will naturally have to follow. On the defense industry and the shipbuilding, defense shares are doing really well. Stocks are doing really, really well.
especially in
They're
Europe.
doing incredibly well in Europe because Europe has woken up to the fact that they cannot rely on America to be there, as they have been since the Bretton Woods Agreement, 1948, I think. The whole landscape has shifted. That may not be such a bad thing, in a way. We are at a point of a global pivot, but we're in a world of dictators. And who would have imagined that we would have effectively a dictator in the United States, which we do with Donald Trump. He governs, he does everything through executive orders. You've got Putin, who does, just keep being re-elected. Xi Jinping, exactly the same. I mean, we are in this world that we have not seen since the run-up to the Second World War. I'm not suggesting we're heading into World War III, unlike the president was the other day with Zelensky. But we are definitely seeing a global realignment of the central powers and the management of that. And this change that is being produced by Trump is rupturing the status quo. And is completely destabilizing in a global political sense and an economic sense the world, the Western world as we know it. And the worst thing that can happen, as we all know, markets and businesses and so on that we run and advise on, is when there's uncertainty, people don't do things.
Right. Everything just stops. And
And it
that's what will
stops.
bring on recession. I see that. And I'm basically in the advertising business, and things have slowed down, I mean, dramatically.
Yeah.
And fear is in the air. So, Dave and James, Annalisa, do you know anything about Treasury bonds? The U.S. Treasury 10-year bond, the rates went down, not up. What's that about, Dave?
There's a couple things going on. One is that the credit markets, the bond markets, are smelling recession, and that will bring interest rates down. The other thing that's been going on in the background over the last couple of years are the central banks dealing with the ocean of securities that they had bought during the zero interest rate period and during the pandemic. And so the Fed has been selling off their inventory of holdings into the market. And I think that that's had an effect on the prices. I don't know why they're doing it, because it's the change in the holding that matters, not the fact that they have the stuff on the balance sheet. And they have, I believe it has had an impact on pricing, but now the markets smell recession, and long rates will come down. Where it gets interesting, is a wrinkle on that is if there is a recession in the United States, that impacts government revenues and it increases spending on the social programs. Deficits increase during recessions. And we've been in deficit 6-7% of GDP. I mean, it's mind-bending. We're really not prepared fiscally. The bond market, I think, is unprepared for what a recession would look like in terms of credit worthiness in DC. That's something I really don't want to get into in this show. I mean, I like the idea of talking about branding and how businesses will navigate this environment.
What's amazing about it is that the new driver of the car that everyone elected and have faith in is the guy leading and driving it into a car crash. He's sort of done that with the wheel, and is causing the wreckage. And you're right. There won't be money going into equities if there's a recession on the horizon. Money will go into government bond.
Yeah, risk off.
The rates are going to come right down because they don't have to pay such high rates to compete with the equities market. Yeah, I mean, it's quite unimaginable that here we are, 3-4 weeks or whatever it is into a Trump administration, or 6 weeks or whatever it is. It's a very, very short period. And from talking about, booming America into a recession.
Right.
And it's extraordinary. No one could, even the good Hollywood script writers would be surprised at one like this. It's an incredible turnaround. And how the hell are you going to correct this thing? I mean, it can be corrected. It can be corrected.
So let me
yeah.
jump in. I know you have to go, and I really appreciate your insight. And please come back and tell us more. Annalisa, I want to turn the mic to you. You have a very personal approach to helping people. You once gave me a lesson about values, and why don't you give me another lesson? You're on mute.
Yes, I know. It's because
Yeah.
Bent is padding around here, and I didn't want his shaking and things to throw anybody. It's my dog, by the way. Right, okay. So yeah, that was a very insightful conversation that we had, Ed, on values. So values and branding, then I think I think values are integral to branding, but only if they're worked, only if they are lived out. And unfortunately, as we know, we see all too often that that companies will put out their values in statements on websites, on the walls of their reception area or their boardroom walls, but they're there mostly for marketing purposes. I see values as actually feeding into the health of the whole organization. So it's all about, they should inform who you work with, who your suppliers are, and they should be the foundations of a safe business infrastructure and a healthy organizational culture. And if done right, will increase staff loyalty, reduce churn, etc. And really, as I say, that they should be the building bricks of the organization. I see it as a bit of a layer cake, really. And I approach it a little bit differently to a lot of values practitioners, in that I think there are the non-negotiable values, which are in essence, you might call them virtues, that all businesses should be building on. So they are the values of accountability and transparency, and from a leadership perspective as well, empathy and kindness. You can still be firm and have boundaries, and have expectations for people to work in, but still also you can still lead with kindness as well. So there's kind of like these foundational values that if you get those right, and you really build those into the fabric of your organization, to build the building blocks, the pillars, if you like, that support the organization going forward. And then you might have then the values that most people start with as their marketing exercise, which are the core values of the organization. What are the values that represent us, or that we're aspiring to live out? And these are the ones that very often, they'll be either chosen because they sound good, because because leaders think, well, they should have honesty, they should have integrity up there. But if you were to ask them if they really live those values out, then I think they might be surprised at the answers. But then within the organization as well, every department will have its own values that hang under the umbrella of the organization's values as well. Finance might have a different set of values to marketing, might have a different set of values to central support and admin. And I think it's important that those, their departmental values and what is important to them get realized too under the values of the organization. So that's the approach that I would take in an organization, is to look at these three sets of values and not just one. So they need to be lived out, and they need to be seen to be lived out, and they need to be modeled and not just talked about, or else it just becomes a very cynical marketing exercise. And unfortunately, that's the approach that a lot of leaders take, not realizing that actually, if they took them more seriously, they speak into corporate social responsibility, they speak into the operations, they speak into marketing and the messages that are being put out there. But nothing really erodes trust internally and externally than the values not being lived out. And consumers, when it gets out into the media that a company has fallen from grace because their values haven't been lived out, then of course it erodes trust in the marketplace, erodes confidence, consumer confidence, confidence in the shareholders, etc. And that impacts on profits and of course the reputation of the company going forward as well. So it does an awful lot of damage. So these things do need to be taken very seriously.
So today is March 12th, and I wonder what the discussion will be on April 12th as we head into the Easter season. And I think it's really going to be a rough 30 days. What do you think, Dave?
Well, I want to work here with what Annalisa was just talking about, and here in the U.S., we've had this shift from a wokest narrative approach to corporate values, because that's kind of that was the political thing to do, and now it's gone the other way completely. Yet companies, especially large companies that have culture, they're faced with, well, do we just talk or do we do? And actually, companies' leadership, they're going to have to be able to talk one thing, but do something else. And that doing is going to have uh, uh, to, to be in the space that their employees are going to buy into. I'm losing my language here, but I think you put your finger on something that's important here in this country, where in the U.S., and it's certainly going to be different in Europe, but I mean in the UK, but the turn in direction here from maybe an excessively progressive and liberal, and now it's gone to this weird conservative rightist take on things. It appeals to some people, just like wokeism appealed to some people. But ultimately, it ends up, what do you do? Do you live out the values of inclusion? Okay, and if you're running a company and your employees feel excluded, they're going to perform that way. If they feel included, that's a different story. So corporate leaders are going to have to, in this country, find a way to talk a political narrative, but in a practical sense, deal with what's in the best interest of their company and their teams, their employees. So what happens in the next month, Ed?
Yeah. So it's a matter of psychological safety, and the leadership has to exude that, has to display that. Annalisa, psychological safety is what you're all about.
Yes, I mean, yeah, and trying to create safe and all welcoming spaces really for people to flourish is what I think sums up what I try to do. And psychological, well, we know how important that is. People need to feel heard, seen, and valued. And I think ultimately we're forgetting that it doesn't matter whether you understand somebody or not, or understand their journey. It doesn't matter whether you even approve of who they are, what they do, what they stand for, how they want to identify. We can all treat each other with respect, and everybody deserves respect, and everybody brings value to the table when they are seen and given the opportunity to express themselves and are treated as such, with respect and given human dignity as well, is really important. And it doesn't matter, it, as I say, the understanding of it, you don't have to understand somebody, you don't have to approve of them, but always treat them with humanity. And somebody who I admire very much in the corporate space over here in the UK, called John Quinton Barber. He runs a PR and creative agency that mainly serves the social housing market over here. But he talks about speaking fluent human. He says, I speak fluent human. And I think that is an absolutely wonderful phrase. Yeah, to be adopted. I think it should be everywhere. Speak fluent human. Yeah, because that's
what fluent human.
Speak fluent human. Yeah.
Thank you. So this starts a series, a weekly series, one a week. And I think on Wednesdays would be the right thing to do. Monday, Tuesday is really hectic, and Thursday, Friday, you look forward to
It's hump day.
a break. Yeah. So Wednesday morning here in the West Coast is 4 p.m. or so in London. And with James and with others that I've invited from the UK and across Europe, we want to bring people together every week, even if it's only for 20 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour. So I welcome you both to come back. And Elisa, I want your voice on our program whenever it's good for you, whenever
Thank
possible
you.
for you.
That's lovely. It's always lovely to be here.
Thank you. Thanks.
Pleasure
This
to
is
spend
Thank
time
you.
with you both.
thank you, Dave.
Likewise, David. Yeah,
I'd
I mean,
love
in
to
all
get
of your insight, wisdom.
yeah.
Sorry, Ed.
No, he's got a real deep background in international business.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would like to get into in the appropriate time and show the cross-border potential for more business, particularly with President Sheinbaum being tuned in, and because the San Diego, in particular, the San Diego Mexican border is a huge economic region and booming, and will continue. So, much more, I believe, than Texas or New Mexico or Arizona in border with Mexico. But that's just my opinion. Thank you, Dave. To be continued. Thank
Yep.
you,
Yeah.
Annalisa.
I'd love to
Just-
talk more about values and in terms of actually the politics as well, and what we're seeing in the States and what's coming out in terms of people saying, the values of America now, particular, yes, J.D. Vance and his speech in Munich at the security conference too. Such an interesting subject, I think, to keep go a little bit more deeper into.
Would you like to join my women's broadcast show coming up? I invite you.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you.
Okay, I've got to check on the date. I think it's this Friday.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm around.
Yeah, and I think but it starts 9 a.m. California, which will be 5 p.m. where you are.
Yeah, that should be fine.
Okay, I'll send you the invite. Dave,
Thank
I
you,
invite
Ed.
you too. It's not just for women, but okay, adios.
Hey, thank you. Take
No,
care.
it's been amazing. Amazing to be on the same program with you, David. Yeah,
Thank you. Wow,
fantastic.
thank you.
Okay, cheers. Okay,
Okay.
bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. Thank you.